Coming up on Hoosier Sports Nite, the quest for 9 ratchets up as men's soccer claims another Big Ten regular season title and looks toward the postseason. And hope springs eternal around men's basketball as Mike Woodson's staff and roster start to take shape. This is Hoosier Sports Nite. Hello and welcome to Hoosier Sports Nite. I'm Will Trubshaw. There's perhaps no clearer sign that spring is here than opening day in the MLB and the Masters teeing off at Augusta. But don't get it twisted. There's still plenty happening around the IU sports scene as we enter the first full month of spring. Starting us off tonight is another IU women's program that's found itself having unprecedented success throughout this season. Erwin Van Bennekom and the IU women's soccer team put the finishing touches on their best season since 2013. A 0-0 draw with Purdue gave the Hoosiers their program best 19th point in Big Ten play and set the team up with the 4th seed in the Big Ten tournament. Our Emma Watson was on the scene to break down the finale. Emma?
The Indiana Hoosiers took on the Purdue Boilermakers in West Lafayette this past weekend. The Hoosiers went into the match with a chance to finish the season near the top of the table and break a program record for single-season conference wins. However, Purdue's head coach Drew Roff and his squad had other plans. The match ended in a 0-0 double overtime stalemate, and Indiana finished 5th in the Big Ten. The game was a defensive battle from the first whistle. IU had few early chances on goal, but the first half was heavily dominated by Purdue. The second half was similar as the Boilermakers controlled possession in IU's territory for the majority of the game. Junior Sarah Griffith and senior Julia Ware were standout stars for the home team as they worked to upset Indiana. However, impressive defensive performances by Olivia Vos and Hannah Namath kept the scoreline level. The highlight for the Hoosiers was senior goalkeeper Bethany Copel. Copel had a career-high 8 saves on 17 total attempts, including a save in double overtime that salvaged the Hoosiers a point. The game ended in a 0-0 draw to wrap up this regular season for Indiana with a 6-4-1 record and a 5th-place spot in the Big Ten standings. For the first time in over a year, the Hoosiers head into the postseason and will face Michigan on Thursday. The game will kick off at 6 p.m. and you can watch it live on Big Ten Network Plus. For IUS TV Sports, I'm Emma Watson. Back to you.
Due to COVID-19 cases in the Michigan program, the game scheduled for Thursday, April 8th was postponed to Friday, April 9th at 4 p.m., according to a press release sent out Thursday afternoon. The Hoosiers have already beaten the Wolverines once, pitching a 2-0 shutout in Ann Arbor back on March 28th. A tournament win would be the first under Van Bennekom in just his second season at the helm. Staying on the pitch, IU men's soccer did it again, winning their 3rd straight Big Ten title and 17th in program history. The Hoosiers were almost perfect in the regular season, finishing with a 7-1 record in the Big Ten. Jack Edwards has more for us as the quest for 9 resumes in earnest.
In a season without fans, the Big Ten men's soccer regular season standings were decided off the pitch as well. With the cancellation of the season finale for the IU men's soccer squad against Maryland, meant that the Hoosiers finished 1st in the Big Ten for the 3rd year running and will be the number 1 ranked seed in the Big Ten tournament starting this weekend. The team will face off against the Northwestern Wildcats, the only team as of yet to hand IU a loss so far this season, and that challenge will be made all the more difficult by the leadership of left back Spencer Glass.
On unfortunate news is the Spencer Glass update that many of you may not know. He has broken his leg in the game against Michigan. So he will be out the rest of the season.
For the Hoosiers, even if they don't have Spencer Glass on the field, his presence will still be felt throughout the squad.
At practice, he's on the golf cart. He came up to the video session today, a smile on his face, and he just wants to see us do well. He wants to see the work that he's put in finish. He wants to see it finished.
A long throw in the dying embers of the first match against Northwestern this season consigned IU to their first loss on the campaign, and that match, probably one of the worst of the campaign, was responded to about a month later with their best performance of the year, a 3-0 win over Northwestern. A third consecutive double-doubles on the cards for the Hoosiers. They have one half of it done, but need to continue to hold off, and they'll have potentially 3 matches here in Bloomington to try and make it 3 straight years, regular season and tournament Big Ten champions, before they try and continue their quest for 9. Make sure to follow IUSTV Sports and myself, Jack C. Edwards, on Twitter for all the content for this weekend's match against Northwestern. But for IUSTV Sports, I've been Jack Edwards.
Indiana faces off with Northwestern in the Big Ten quarterfinals on Saturday at 2 p.m. The Hoosiers' lone loss was to the Wildcats in Evanston back on February 27th. And of course, be sure to follow Jack and Emma for up-to-the-minute updates on both the men's and women's tournament action. Well, it's been a little over a week since IU AD Scott Dolson announced he would be hiring Mike Woodson to take the reins of the men's basketball program. In that time, it's not overstating it to say that there's been more for IU fans to be excited about than all of last season. Joining us in studio to talk about the latest addition to Coach Woodson's staff and who all has decided to stay in Bloomington is our very own Gwen Parks. Gwen, take it away.
Thanks, Will. The Indiana men's basketball team's new head coach, Mike Woodson, has made an exciting addition to his staff by bringing back another familiar face to Bloomington. On Monday, IU announced the return of former Hoosier Dane Fife as the team's new assistant coach. Fife is a former IU basketball player himself who played under former head coach Bob Knight from 1998 to 2002. In 2003, Fife became an administrative assistant for the IU program, and in 2005, he was hired as head coach for Purdue Fort Wayne until 2011, where Fife became Michigan State's assistant coach. Woodson said in a statement that Fife's knowledge of the Big Ten and his success as a recruiter will be an invaluable asset as we look to continue building a staff that will help elevate this program to its highest levels. Woodson also said that Fife's love for the Hoosiers and this university comes across the moment that you talk to him. And other basketball news, 4 of the 6 players who had entered the transfer portal have withdrawn their names from the portal, with the latest of those being Race Thompson, Jordan Geronimo, and Christian Lander. Team star Trace Jackson Davis also announced that he is staying with the program after speculation that he would leave for the NBA draft. And finally, Mike Woodson landed transfer guard Xavier Johnson from Pittsburgh. Johnson made the announcement on Wednesday and immediately started interacting with his new teammates on Twitter. Overall, it's a pretty good week for IU men's basketball. Will, back to you.
All right, thanks, Gwen. Heading into this past weekend, IU baseball had not yet lost a series or even consecutive games this season. That changed when IU made a 4-game stop in Columbus, Ohio. The Ohio State University prevailed in all 4 games for the series sweep over Indiana. The Buckeyes pitching was lights out as predicted by head coach Jeff Mercer. And the Buckeyes even managed to keep the Hoosiers off the scoreboard for the first time this season. A brilliant 7-inning pitching performance by Gabe Bierman in the final game wasn't enough to secure a win for the Hoosiers. This current 5-game losing streak has dropped IU to 4th in the Big Ten standings, only 1 game behind Ohio State. The team will have their next chance to end the winless skid on Friday when they host Illinois. Meanwhile, IU softball dropped 3 of 4 up in Iowa City, with 2 games going into extra innings. In the first game of the series, back-to-back home runs for Aaliyah Andrews and Annika Baez lifted the Hoosiers to victory in 9 innings. The Hawkeyes came for revenge, taking both games of the doubleheader on Saturday afternoon. In the Sunday finale, IU fell just short as Iowa walked it off in dramatic fashion in the 10th. Senior catcher Bella Norton finished her weekend strong, recording 3 of her 6 hits on Sunday. The Hoosiers look to bounce back this weekend with rival Purdue on deck. Last weekend, the IU men's golf team hosted the Hoosier Collegiate Invitational, breaking in the new foul course right here in Bloomington. IUSTV golf reporter Evan Kamikow has more.
Over the weekend, the Indiana Hoosiers men's golf team hosted the Hoosier Invitational. The tournament, which saw 8 other teams come to Bloomington, was the first competitive collegiate event to be played at the brand new foul course. The Hoosiers men's golf team came in 2nd out of 9, finishing behind the Michigan State Spartans. Junior Harry Reynolds and freshman Drew Salyers both finished tied for 7th place, shooting 10 over par. Sophomore Eric Berggren and junior Mitch Davis both shot 12 over par to be tied in 15th. To round out the team, freshman Clay Merchant tied for 21st, finishing 14 over par. Competing as individuals, Ethan Shepard and Brock Oceanrider finished tied for 4th and tied for 7th, respectively. The Hoosiers will travel to West Lafayette for the Boilermaker Invitational next weekend. For IUS TV Sports, I'm Evan Kamiko.
The Hoosier men's golf team is back in action again this weekend at the Boilermaker Invitational in West Lafayette. Be sure to follow along with Evan at eKamikow on Twitter for coverage of the weekend's highlights. Over the weekend, the Indiana women's golf team traveled to Sellersburg, Indiana to compete in the Indiana Spring Challenge against Michigan State, Minnesota, Notre Dame, and Wisconsin. Senior Angela Ong shot 6 over par, finishing tied for 9th. Hannah Tanaka shot 9 over par and tied for 15th. And in her collegiate debut, freshman Morgan DeBaggia started off well, shooting a 72 in the first round. But DeBaggia finished tied for 20th, shooting 12 over par. The Hoosiers return to action on April 17th and 18th as they make their competitive debut at the Foul Course here in Bloomington when they host the Indiana Invitational. And rounding out today's show, we have Ryan Scott in studio to preview what's next on the calendar for some of the other sports teams in action this week. Ryan?
Thanks, Will. There's plenty more action to be had in the coming week, starting off with the track and field team hosting the Indiana Invitational this weekend. Meanwhile, field hockey is headed up to Happy Valley to take on Penn State in a 2-game set on Friday and Sunday. It's also a busy schedule over on the tennis courts, starting with the women's squad who will face Northwestern at home before heading to Michigan State on Sunday to face the Spartans. The men's team has 2 matchups, first welcoming Penn State on Saturday and wrapping up the weekend against the Ohio State Buckeyes on Sunday. Finally, the water polo team has a huge 2-game set versus the number 2 team in the nation, UCLA, here in Bloomington. Make sure you follow along with all the Hoosier programs as they have a packed schedule. Will, back to you.
Thanks, Ryan. And that's all for our show this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget to give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at IUS TV Sports. For our amazing production crew behind me and in the studio, I'm Will Trubshaw. Stay happy and healthy. We'll see you next week.